Hey, I'm JD. Welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and please hit like. And guess what? We're at 30,000 subscribers. And here we have a platform balance that we're going to reassemble today in preparation of reassembling the complete balance and platform balance for a carriage clock. And a shout out to Jada if you're watching this video today. So now, a couple of days ago, I was at on my lathe, and I was making a balance staff. These things are really tiny. This is the broken one I used as a model or the sample to cut the new one. It's very difficult to cut a new balance staff without a sample, even though I've done it before. Very difficult. A lot of measuring required. So if you've got the sample and you've got the pivot on one end not broken, it's perfect because you know the length of the pivots. If you have the pivot broken on both ends, then you have to estimate the length of that pivot and add that to the overall length of the balance staff. And then you can cut it and then trim. So you end up doing a lot more work in trying to trim the balance staff. The only tricky part on this with this whole thing is that when I made the balance staff here, I cut too much material off for the hairspring collet. So the hairspring collet will have to be crunched in a bit, just a bit. And I have a tool that costs around 300 bucks actually. It's a Bergeon tool for actually compressing the collet that should work. So staking the balance on first will be the job, and then after I stake the balance on, I very carefully stake on the roller table and make sure it's 90 degrees to the arm of the balance, and that should be good. I still need, and then I'll put the hairspring on, and the hairspring is studded to the balance cock. This is the platform here that it goes on. This is the upside down platform, so it goes on top here. This is the balance cock here, and this gets studded in place right here. So there's effectively a very small, see if I can get up close here, you can see. So there is a stud on the end right here, like this, and it gets pinned in, and this is the regulator. So this slides back and forth. So I need to actually disassemble this because I believe that the upper jewel on this is cracked, and I'm not quite sure if the lower jewel is in good condition or it's also cracked. So I may have to replace some jewels here. It's a bit of work to do that, but it's necessary. Otherwise this won't work. So it's going to be a lot of finicky kind of work today to get this thing running again after I've already made this balance staff. So it takes to make a balance staff, you're going to spend upward to, well, if you're lucky, you're spending 3 hours. If you're unlucky, you're spending 5 hours. So somewhere in that range to actually complete this balance staff. I could probably do one in 3 hours if I didn't talk while I was doing it, but I'm going to do, and you can comment on this, I'm going to do a session where I live stream making a balance staff, and you guys can log in to the live stream and see what that looks like. So there you go. Hey, I got a new pair of glasses on today, but they're just 3s for looking down. They're not good for my screen, so I have to put my old man glasses back on again. They're wide. They look like the amazing Kreskin, who was a Canadian mentalist back in the day, had a TV show in 1980 or 1970. For 70 to 75 was the #1 show on TV. So somewhere in this pile of crap as well that I have the pin to pin the balance in place. So pin the balance. So we're going to just start staking this balance together again and get on with it. But there's the balance staff right there that I made the other day. So I think the friction fit of the roller table is perfect for this because I went right up to probably about 90% of where it needs to be, and I left the material at the end part so it can stake on nicely. It's just the hairspring that might be a little tricky. So the balance should go on as well. So I'll show you how I put the whole darn thing together. Alright, so this is my centering stake for the staking set, and you need to kind of find the hole that the balance staff will fit into, and that's just detailed precision work that needs to happen. So we're going to get on with that So as I test or trial finding the hole here, I got to just make sure that when I'm doing this, I don't damage the pivot on the end. So what I do is just try to find the right hole for this balance to get into. The smallest hole possible is good. This one here might be a little tight, I'm not sure, because you don't want to stake the balance onto the staking set. That would be a disaster. So this hole looks good right here. So you just put it in the hole and then lower the centering stake to make sure you've got the right hole. Raise the centering stake out of the way and then pull the balance staff out like this and then lower that centering stake again. And now I know I've got the right centering like this. Push down on that nicely and then tighten the anvil in the back like that. And so that's centered. And then because I want to make sure I know where this thing is, I just kind of look at it and there's usually little marks on your staking set. So just grab this like this and it went in, I think, right here. I just need to put my watchmaking glasses on here for a second too, because it's getting pretty close to the work. So there it is there, and that's centered nicely. So I can remove, just make sure that's the right one. Yeah, there it is there. And now I can remove the balance here like this, and the balance would go right on top of this like this. Just place that down like that, and that would go on like this. So I need to find a stake that'll help me stake this onto the collar that I cut. So it's going to be friction fit, so it's going to be pretty tight, but I need a stake that will actually go over that collar just ever so slightly to allow me to actually press that all the way down onto that collar. Now, to figure out which stake fits over the collar for the balance staff, I recommend taking the old balance staff and going to your staking set and fitting the stake over that collar where the balance actually fits. So you can kind of eyeball this a bit, but you really need to just put your old balance staff onto a piece of Rodico and then get deep and dirty and actually try to find a stake that'll fit over that collar nicely. So you just get in close. So this one here is close, but not quite enough. So I need to go, so all these stakes are no good. So I need to go to a bigger stake. I probably should organize these by size someday, but so this stake fits, but there's a little bit of side shake. So I'm going to go to this one here, and that fits, and I think this one fits even better. So this one here is my stake of choice so far. Let me look around here. I think that might be it, because I need it to fit over that collar. And I don't believe there's any flat stakes out there that'll do that. I'm going to go right over here and have a look at this one here. Off to the side. That's no good. Alright, so I think it might be, it's a choice between these two here. I don't think this one is, let me see this one here. That's way too loose. So it's a choice between this one here, and look at that side shake, and this one here, and look at that side shake. I'm almost wanting to get this one right here. So this is the right one here, so I can use this device to just grab that out like that. And that is a stake that'll fit right over the top of that, which means it'll punch the staff on without interfering with that little collar. So that's how you do that. This is a stake here again. That'll punch this staff on without interfering with the collar that has to go over. So this is the broken one that I'm using right now, so I don't have to take the other one out of where I have it on the anvil. All right, now I'm going to trial this down here just quickly. And that does go over that collar. And it stops at the second collar, or the wider diameter collar. So now I'm going to just put the balance on the top here. like so. Be mindful of where the pivots are when you're doing this. The last thing you want to do is screw up the pivots. Now if you can put the stake down just a bit and press down just to get a bit of friction fit here, then great. And I did that and it came down nicely, so that's already kind of down there, but it's not all the way down. So, and you look at it sideways to see where you are, and I've got a little bit of a space there. Let me see if I can show you that space. That's possible. There it is there, and there's a little tiny bit of the space between the bottom. It's very hard to see actually between the actual arm of the balance and that other part. So there it is there. Now I'm going to stake that down with the flat stake to start off with. And again, I know that flat stake goes over the top, so it needs a couple of taps, and then check underneath to make sure that it's touching on the bottom. So make sure your hammer is tight, and I use the metal part of the hammer, and it just, and there it's all the way down. You can tell by the sound of the hammer, right? So there it is there, all the way down. And just see if I can get a close-up of this. There we go. And you can see a bit of material sticking up from the top, and that's my rivet material. Now this is friction fit, so this fit nicely, right? So now I can actually rivet that on, and I do that with a round stake. Now just like I was doing before, see that guitar in the background? Very first guitar ever. So just like I did before, I'm taking the old balance staff here, and I'm going to try to fit the collar that holds the hairspring, right? That should fit into the hole for the round stake, and it should be tight. So if it's not tight, it's not going to work. So there's one there, not tight, and I kind of eyeball what they're looking like to see if I can find a tight one. That's way too small there. And sometimes I've noticed that I have to go to a stake that's got kind of it's round on one side but not on the other. Like this stake seems to be pretty popular. So this one fits perfectly. It may be a little bit tight, but it's a very good fit to that. So there's a cough for you. Hopefully I edit that out. So it's this stake right here is the one. And let me give you maybe a close-up of that fit, and so you can see exactly what I mean. All right, here's the old balance to do the measurement with, and here's the stake, and I'm going to have to stake down and then rotate and stake and rotate. So because it's only round on two sides. So there we go. So there it fits perfectly. That's a perfect fit in there, right? So that's fitting perfectly. Let me just get a different angle here. Like that. There's the hole, and you'll see how I'm fitting it over the collar for the hairspring. And there's the perfect fit right there. Hopefully you can see that. And I'm again using my old balance. That way I've got no problem with the new one and lifting it out and putting it back in again. So I can pull that out again, and that's right there, the perfect fit. So now I've got to stake that on, and I'm spreading the rivet. Now I'm going to put the stake down, which is a round stake down, and actually pull it back up again to make sure it goes all the way down and comes all the way back up again. There it is there, and it's bottomed out nicely there, and then when I pull it back up, it's not stuck. That's what you want. You don't want it to be stuck. So now I got to tap it down. So I'm going to look at my edges here because this is not perfectly round. So I'm going to pull it down there like that, and I'm going to tap that down a few times. Now I'm going to pull it up and rotate it like this, and then tap it down again. And I'm going to pull it up and rotate it. I'm kind of doing a 45-degree rotation. The first one was 180. And then up again, and then rotate it, and down again. And this is spreading the rivet. And then up again, rotate it, down again. Now I'm going to pull it all the way up and have a look at what I've got here. And that is very nice. And now what I want to do is flatten that rivet out now that I've spread it with a flat stake. So once again, I need a flat stake that's this size that goes over the collar where the hairspring goes. And there's the sample again, so I go back to my staking set and pick that. There we go. So now I'm going to go and fit a stake on, hopefully really tight, over the hairspring collar that I cut. That's too small, and you just got to eyeball the next one up. I should organize these by size and make it a lot easier for me. Go to the next one up. This one looks really good, but it's kind of blocked in the inside somehow, so I'm not sure what that's all about. I don't want to get out my extremely good staking set, but I might, because I want this to be a perfect fit. So there's some material blocking this one on the inside. So I'm going to move over this one, and maybe over to this one here. Wow, this one's almost good too, except it's a bit too tight. Or is it? Maybe not. So this one here is really good. So I'm looking at this one right here. So I'm going to pull this one out and show you how tight that is, and hopefully that works. And again, I'm going to lower it over that other balance staff to make sure I don't have a problem. So here's the balance here, and we grab that stake here. It's on the end. It's always good to put your tools back between using them, because you'll lose them. Use them or lose them. So I'm not sure if I get the right visual here, but I'm just going to fit this in the hole, and you'll see how tight it is. So this is over the collar like this and right down to that rivet. So that's a perfect fit right there. So that should spread the stake. Now that I've sort of flared it out, and then I spread it. If you remember when I made the balance staff here, I had to undercut that part of the collar that holds the balance itself. So I undercut it a bit, kind of creates a little edge bowl, and then I use the round stake to push that out. I use this stake here to flare it out, the round one. It's got some flat edges on it, but I just rotate it to make sure that's useful. I tend to grab this one a lot. Maybe balance staffs are all the same size. So use the round stake to do it, and use the flat stake now to flare that out a bit. So let me just get that done. So again, use your old balance staff to do all the measurement, and you don't have to remove this one at all. So now I'll lower this one here and make sure it lowers and then comes back up again. Like that. There we go. So now I'll just tap this down a few times. It doesn't need much to flare that out. Tap it down and then rotate it, and then tap it down again. And that, my friends, should be good. And you can see that the condition of this, the condition of the balance staff is excellent. So there it is there, and that's flattened out nicely, right? Now to test this, you just grab a pair of tweezers like that, hold it steady, and then try to rotate it. And if the balance staff itself rotates, you need to spread that rivet out a bit more. But in this case, I know it's in there solid, so I'm not too concerned, because I saw that even with the friction fit that it was solid. So that's that. And now the good thing is I've got a reverso staking set. So this is a reverso staking set. I know this stake fits perfectly over this balance, so I can actually use this stake here to stake on the roller table. So I'll show you exactly what I do here. So the first thing you do is just remove that balance. You're going to be flipping this around the other way, and I really want to make sure the anvil is perfect to fit over, but I don't need to worry about that because the stake I used, the stake here I know fits over that collar, And so I throw that down here, and it goes through the large hole in the staking set, because it's a reverso staking set, right? So now there's a bit of movement here like this. So what I recommend is to take the stake out. You know it fits, so there's not an issue there. And then use your centering stake. It's a bit bigger to center this one here. So you make sure that's absolutely center like that. It goes in perfectly center, and then tighten that. Give it a good squeeze on the back end here to make sure that's tight. And then you can drop the stake in upside down, and that's going to go all the way down to the base, right? So that's down on the base now. So that's absolutely perfect. Now I can take the balance and put that down on this stake, and I know for a fact that it'll rest nicely where the rivet is, because I use this stake to rivet that on. So there we go there. And now I want to put the roller table on, and I want to make sure the roller table is at 90 degrees to the arms of the balance. That's just a practice. Maybe I don't think it's a weight thing because the jewel weighs almost nothing, but I want to make sure that's 90 degrees to the balance. So the first thing I do though is I want to measure a stake that's going to go over this shaft here where the roller table is, and that stake should clear that, should be tight enough to pound the roller table down. And I want to make sure there's a groove in that stake to actually compensate for the impulse jewel. So when you stake it down, you don't break the impulse jewel. And I'll show you what I mean, but we're going to go stake hunting again. And I'm going to use the old balance staff to do that, but I'm going to rotate that around like so. I'm just not showing you this, but I'm going to rotate it around and stick it back in my Rodico, right? And I'm taking nice care of the old balance staff, just in case at the end of the day, I have to make a new one because something went wrong. So there we go there, because you want your master to stay true, right? So now I got to go find a flat stake that fits over the collar that holds the roller table. Now the flat stake I'm looking for, if you can, you want it to have a groove in it like this to pound down the roller table. If for some reason you can't, then you have to find a stake that will go down onto the roller table, but not interfere with the impulse jewel. And there are smaller stakes that might work, but we'll try these ones first and have a look at how they fit, right? Because putting the roller table in shouldn't be that challenging a job. So this one has got a lot of play in it, and so does this one. But if I go down to the smaller stakes, you're looking at you're looking at this one here is the only one that fits, and I'll show you how this might interfere. So I'm going to grab this stake here, and I may have to get my other staking set. So now I'm going to rotate my roller table here so it gives me a good 90-degree look here as I put on my impulse, or rotate my balance as I put my roller table on. Let me just rotate it here like this so I get 90 degrees out of this thing. So there we go there. Now the challenge here again is that stake going to fit inside of that jewel, because you don't want to break the impulse jewel. So I'll grab an old piece of Rodico here, and that's going to help me just move that roller table around, because it's got some adhesion to it, right? So, and I also, one thing I do sometimes is I just look through the hole in the balance in the staking set, look through the top hole of the staking set and look down. See if I can get a better camera view here with a different type of light. There we go. I can look right down through the hole in the staking set and see, let me just do this, and see where that balance is with respect to the 90 degrees, and see that's off just a bit, right? So I'm going to go down here again and move that, but I'm going to move it while I'm looking through the hole on the top. Not sure who taught me that, but it's a trick I do all the time. It just makes sense. So that's pretty good there. I'll look at it from the rear as well. And it looks like it's just slightly off from the rear. And there we go there. So that's, yeah, that's about as good as I can get with that balance. So that's not bad because it's not a huge concern, but you're going to want to make sure it clears. So I'm going to get the stake out and see if that stake itself is going to be able to clear that jewel. And the answer is no. So that stake, if I use this stake, as you can see, it's going to touch this jewel. So there's the stake there, and you watch when I lower that, and it interferes with the jewel. So if I use that stake to put that on, it's going to break the jewel. So then I'm going to get the next the stake I have that's a little bit too big here. I'm not sure if this one here will work. So I've got another stake I found here, and I'm going to measure this against the previous part to see if this goes in. I doubt if it will. Oh geez, it's so close. That's really close. I could probably bring this one almost all the way down, right? And it's stopping right before it gets to the end. But does that go down far enough that far enough where I don't have to worry about it grounding out, because it's stopping right there, and there's just a little bit left. And is that the width of the roller table? Who knows? So I can try this one because I know it fits over the top. So does it clear the jewel though? That's the question. So let me just rotate this again and have a look. And that goes down nicely, and then that cleared the jewel all the way to this position here. And now if I tap that down, is it going to get stuck? That's my big question. But you can see right now how that jewel is inside of that stake, right? So that's good. And in the stake is tight to that, so tight to that position. So if I just tap on that, and I want to make sure that the stake doesn't get stuck. Nothing worse than a stuck stake. I think I'm going to switch to the bigger stake just to make sure it doesn't get stuck, because a stuck stake is not good. So this is a bigger stake, and I can go down on this and know that it's going to clear it without a problem. There we go. So that's down there nicely. And now I can tap it again. And again, you can kind of tell by the sound that it's all the way down, but let me just tap it and see if I can get it to go down here. There, that sounds like it's all the way down. Let me look. Yeah, that's so close. I'm going to give it a few more taps. But one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to crack the roller table. So that's all the way down now. So that's in position. So now I've got myself the roller table staked in place. It's pretty much 90 degrees. Let me see if that's 90 degrees. That's a little tiny bit off from 90 degrees. I'm not too concerned because the hairspring will compensate for that. So when the thing is at rest, it'll be a little bit off from 90. But it's not a big concern. It's just sort of anal retentivity. So as I stake that down, it might have rolled it a bit. And I don't want to remove it and put it back. So because you're only wanting 90 degrees if you mark the balance, right? This balance is marked right now. And I put a black mark right there on the balance where the stud would be, right? But when I put the hairspring back on, I have to adjust it anyway to align the jewel to the center where the actual pallet fork is at rest. So it doesn't make a huge difference, but it helps for it to be 90 degrees. So that's not exactly 90 degrees, but it's close enough for government work. That's what they say. So that's pretty good there. So that's staked on. This is staked on. Now the only thing I need to do now is crimp the hairspring. So this is a little bit tricky, but I'm going to get my hairspring crimping device and be right back. Now you notice because I have a reverso staking set that it was pretty darn handy that once I understood the actual diameter I needed for that other part, that one that was against the rivet, I could use the exact same stake as a stump. So I didn't need to use any of the stumps, which is kind of cool. So, and if you look at my staking set in general, it's a pretty good staking set, but I've got one of my stakes is out of order here because I've put the round one back here somewhere, I think, or not. No, I didn't. Here we go there. So that stake can go back in here, and then the staking set, you put the anvil back right in there. I think it's called the anvil. It's got to be a hammer and anvil if you're a guy that does metal work. So that's the staking set. Now normally you'd probably use one of the stumps here, because there's a number of stumps that can be used, and you can also, like it shows right there, that compensates for the jewel. So you could also put the roller table back in by turning it upside down, putting this in, and that's the opening for the jewel, and then staking that down. But it's much better the way I just did it. So you can find a stump, one of these stumps here that are on the bottom. Just move some of this around. One of these stumps here on the bottom would easily fit that. So so that's what I recommend. So this is my C.E. Marshall staking set, the reversal staking set. I've got two other staking sets. One is it's not as big as this one, but it's comprehensive and complete. And then I have one that's the best one you can get, actually. I've got that one locked up. So if you're going to do watch work, you're going to need one of these babies. And this is the device that's used to actually crimp that collet. As you can see, its sole purpose in life is to reduce the size of the hairspring collet. So just like I said, you can make a mistake and the friction fit can be slightly off, but you can reduce the size. Now if the friction fit is off on the other side where the roller table comes in, there's a stake that's called a star stake, and it's got sort of a star configuration on the bottom. I think there's 5 of them, actually, 5 points, and then you can take the roller table on the staking set and then tap that right around the hole of the actual roller table, and that'll reduce the size of the actual hole for the roller table. So I've done that before, actually, when I've screwed up cutting the arm, cutting the right diameter for the arm of the collet. So here's this device here, and you use that in conjunction with the hairspring. So here's the hairspring here, and all I do is fit this. So I need to fit this in here, so I need to get in deep and dirty. All right, I think I cut off the word again, but I got to get in here deep and dirty. So here it is here, and I just need to know which one of these fits it perfectly, right? So you just have to close it down just a bit so you know where it's going to end up. And I'm going to compress it from this side. Actually, I'm going to compress it from this side. So I'm going to turn this thing around and compress it from the bottom side. I also have to do a slight adjustment on this hairspring. So working with hairsprings is a real pain in the butt, by the way, but it's a necessary evil of watchmaking. So I think the largest size hole is the one I'm going to have to use, because the other ones are not even close to be able to grab that and compress it. So let me see if I am lucky enough to be able to compress this with this device. If you can't, so I want to make sure the crack is aligned with the crack in this device, right? So I just do this and line it up and place that down, and all you're going to need is just a bit of pressure for this thing to drop. So there we go there, and I want to make sure that is in place, and right now it doesn't seem to be dropping down, and which means that the hole for this might not be big enough, and I'm not quite sure, but that's not good, because it'll scrape the edge of the thing. So as it's closing it, I want it to actually grab the edges and close it. So let me see how far I need to open this thing for this thing to drop down. So I opened it almost all the way here. And I'm pretty sure I'm going to pay attention to the diameter as well, because I'm looking at these two, this one here and the other one, and this is the bigger one. And I'm looking where the pressure might be placed as this closes. And I think in this case, I may put it in this way because of the pressure going on the sides. So if I drop that down like that, when I close this, it's going to cause pressure on the edges right there. So if I have it like that, what happens? It pushes it inward. And if I have it like this, what happens? Let me have a look here. It does the same thing, but provides, I think, a little more control over the squeeze. So let me just try this out. And I'm looking at, right now, looking at the crack. I'm looking at the crack right there to see if that's going to compress properly. So just turn this here until you see it compress, and then take it out again. Now, you don't want to compress it too much because you'll crack it, and that is not good. So now I've compressed it, and I don't know whether that's compressed enough, but I can try that out. So let me just get a block for the part. So get my bench block here and drop my balance onto the bench block, and then try this out. So let me just move that up a bit, and I want everything to clear, so I'm just going to put this, look straight down to see which hole is the best hole to drop this into. That's too small. This is probably the perfect size right there. Or go to the other side here, and that is too small. That's the perfect size here, but it's way on the edge. Does it matter? I don't know. That's not the perfect size. It's too small. So I do have to go over here with this bench block like that. So the arms are now flat, right? Again, I'm trying to pay attention to where everything is on the bench right now, and the best camera angle I can get here. I've got the light on the camera and everything, so there we go. I think that color light is the best color light. So there we go there. So now I'll take the hairspring here, and I just want to see how far it goes down. Now I know I have a mark, a black mark right there on the balance, and I know that the jewel is on the other side. It's on this side here, and I know that if I put this down here like this, right, that should suffice. And also, I also know that when I cut this balance, it was sliding all the way down and without any friction at all. So I'm going to look in the bottom here, and there's still a little bit of room on the very bottom here, but I would actually like this to be a little tighter. So, but what I do like about this is that it did compress, just slightly compress this collet. So, but I'd like it to be up a little bit more. So I'm going to get my hands that I use to remove. I can use these hands, or I can use screwdrivers to get under here to do this. So in this case, which one is best? I think I'll just use screwdrivers. So these are for removing watch hands, and getting a set of screwdrivers to do this is the best practice. Now, because this is a balance for a carriage clock, I can use pretty big screwdrivers here to get underneath this, and then just tip this up a bit and then move it out. And it really wasn't that tight, so I do have the opportunity to tighten that up a bit more. The other way of tightening it up is actually, and it's getting caught up in the pivot here, the other way to tighten this up is to use your staking set and find a stake that's conic that you can tap down on that, right? So that you tap down on the conic stake, and that'll compress it. So I may end up having to do that if this device here, which I've paid a fortune for, doesn't appropriately compress the collet. So I did it this way. Now I'm going to try it this way. There we go. And I'm going to close this device again. Make sure, look down the bottom to make sure it's grabbing the right stuff here. And then just turn this knob here to close it down a bit. One thing I'm very concerned with here is this collet cracking. So just remove the pressure from it. Then I'm going to rotate it again. And I know I got a little bit of distance I can go here, so let me rotate this hairspring collet again. Grab the spring ever so lightly. If you don't think working on watches where you have to be very precise in this stuff, then you're in the wrong business. So there. So I've got that down again, and what I'm going to do is look underneath to make sure I'm compressing the right stuff. Because if I compress this and I touch the spring or some other stuff when I'm doing this, I could ruin it. So I want to make sure it's in the right position. When I do this job. Kind of like that. Look underneath. Looks pretty good. There, I've compressed it again. Again, I'm not sure if that's correct or not, so I can grab this again and put this on the on top. And I'm looking where the mark is on the actual rim of the balance. Put that down like that. And then this pushes down. That's a lot tighter than it was. So I'm not sure if that'll do or not, but just push down on that now, and that's all the way down. And I'm not sure if that's tight enough, but it's pretty tight. So that's not too bad. And you can tell if you grab the hairspring here and you turn this whole thing, right, you know it's holding on nicely. So, and the other thing I can do, and I know I can put my screwdriver in the crack here and rotate the collet. I'm not sure how much friction there is in rotating the collet, but I can do this here and then rotate the collet, and that's actually holding nicely. So that's not moving with the screwdriver, which means the collet is probably good enough. So that's good. So that now it's all together. And let me just grab the hairspring and I can bounce that back. So I'll just grab the hairspring here like this, and I can pick up the whole movement, the thing. But before that was so loose it would just fall off. So I was able to compress the collet with this device that I have, this one here. And this is a big collet, so it didn't quite fit as I wanted it to, but it fit enough. So that was good. That works. This thing costs around $300, so it's not cheap, but it's highly recommended to get one of these. The Bergeon. It's a Bergeon 3007, so 3007. Get one of these. You're going to need it for compressing collets if you're making balance staffs. So let me put this back in place so it's safe, like that. And I'll just leave this in the block until I need to actually do the install. One thing I do know is that it's tilted just a bit, so I can adjust the hairspring tilt on that and get it finalized. So that, my friends, that is the video for today. There it is there. I hope this was of use. I'm going to process this now, and you can give me back your comments on this, but this is ready. And now the next thing I need to do with this particular movement is I need to clean this up, and I actually need to check the condition of the jewel. I know there's a crack, a pretty obvious crack in the upper cap jewel, but I don't know the condition of the jewel itself, right? It would be really nice if this whole unit fit perfectly. So I'm not going to fit this until I've cleaned all this up, but it should fit perfectly. But I'm going to examine the jewels because I don't want the jewels themselves to ruin my brand new balance staff. So thanks a lot, JD here. Thanks for watching my video. Shout out to Jada, who's out there. And if Jada, if you got to the very end of this video, say hi back, and I'll catch you later. So one last thing I wanted to do that I just remembered to do last night, I've got liquid shellac here that I made. And it's made with 100% pure shellac. It's got no wax in it. And it's made with 100% pure alcohol. So it's a good idea to use that if you want to be able to fart with the impulse jewel and not worry about losing that, basically aligning the impulse jewel perfectly. So what I want to do here though is I've got the impulse jewel and it seems to be in position nicely, right? So it's in the balance here, it's in good position, and right at the very top of this impulse jewel, see, I don't think I'll be able to point to it, but without ruining something. But right at the top of the impulse jewel, let me get back up here a bit, right kind of there, right there, I want to put a bit of shellac at the very top, and I can use the liquid shellac to do that, and just hold this while I just put a little tiny dot of liquid shellac on that. And the reason I'm doing it is because I know the impulse jewel is in place. I'm not absolutely sure how long it'll stay in place. It's an old watch. I don't want to remove the impulse jewel and put it back in because it's probably not needed to do that. But I do know that if I put a little tiny dot of liquid shellac on there, trying to grab a dot of liquid shellac, if I put a little dot of liquid shellac on there, then that will dry up and harden, and that will make sure I never have a problem with that impulse jewel. And I'm going to go, I think, from the top, and I don't want this liquid shellac to touch anything else but the top of that impulse jewel. Otherwise I'm going to have problems. That's pretty good there, but I'm going to put another little dab-a-doo because my dab-a-doo-ya was too small. So Sonny out there would appreciate this technique. Okay, that's a much better ball of liquid shellac on this thing now. So I got to make sure I don't touch the hairspring. That would be a disaster. So I'm going to go from the bottom this time. And I'm just touching this and putting the liquid shellac on the top of this impulse jewel, and then just removing it like that. And I know that I'm going to use my use a piece of pegwood here to make sure any little tiny thread of this stuff is not going to interfere with the roller table. So that's perfect right there. And now I'll just sit this down on the block here for a full day. So I'm not going to touch this for a full day. I'm just let that dry. And that is going to help keep that impulse jewel in place forever.